I believe so much of this is destined, so much of the ways that we interact with people. Sometimes you're like saying something to someone, you don't even realize it's going to hurt them. It sets them through their own dark night of the soul. And I believe all of this is related to past lives. I also believe it's ancestral, that like we get to the level of consciousness of our, grandparents and we stand upon their shoulders. So a lot of times it's their unfinished business. So like one of my grandmothers was in an arranged marriage when she was a child and never got to really choose someone for love. And so for me in this lifetime, it's all about like love and like really having that connection and not repeating that story in the lineage of a man who's always working and emotionally unavailable and a woman who sacrifices her entire life for her family and never receives love. So I think it's past lives, it's ancestral, it's karmic, and the more and more I go on my spiritual journey, the less I believe in free will. I'm like, this shit is destined.
Trust flows, surrender, let go. Trust flows, surrender, let go. Trust flows, surrender, let go. I'm the one I've been waiting for.
Welcome back to the Highest Self Podcast. My name is Sahara Rose. And on this podcast, I love to honor your multidimensional self. I'm talking about the parts of you that are spiritual, soulful, successful, romantic, playful, and everything in between. Because to me, the spiritual journey is not about getting somewhere or just being one thing, but it's about embodying all of you. And that's really what we do here on this podcast. I've been rocking with it for the past 8 years now. I'm also a best-selling author, the founder of Highest Self Institute. That is a premier organization teaching spiritual life coaches, purpose coaches, and embodiment coaches. And I love to bring it all together in conversations that I'm having in my personal life with my students and beyond here on this podcast. So welcome. So this is the monthly podcast that we do with my personal bestie, Rosie, where we answer all of your questions. And, often you send me DMs on my Instagram, I am Sahara Rose, with your questions. So I decided on my Instagram stories to actually ask you all the questions you have, print them out, and put them in this cool little astronaut headset that I actually used for one of my music videos coming up soon. It was a TLC spaceship vibe. So we have never read these questions. There are over 40 questions printed out on here. So the way this episode is going to flow is going to be a little game. And we're going to close our eyes and let spirit choose the right answer for us divinely and both share what we feel that it is. And I mean, we're definitely not going to get through all 40. So maybe the next episode we will continue. Let's see how it goes. So introducing my bestie, Rosie Acosta.
Hello.
Tell us about yourself.
What, really?
I mean, in case someone's new here, let's be polite.
Yes, I'm an author. I'm a meditation and mindfulness teacher. I teach at Headspace. I have my own podcast called the Radically Love Podcast. And I am just one of your biggest fans. And I love this show and I love your community. And I'm just really grateful to be here.
Well, thank you, baby girl. And the way that this podcast started was Rosie and I would voice note back and forth, like throughout the day of all these like deep philosophical questions about like the meaning of life and relationships and sexuality and attachment styles and are we living in assimilation? And we would like send like good, I mean, we still do this 20-minuters, even though we have this podcast, we actually make a new podcast every single day. And we're like, we need to get this on the air because other people, like you're our third now, like welcome. You are our third. We're so grateful to have you here. We love you. So let's get into it with some of these. So I would say like, let's give a little like maybe how we're different in our opinions because we're different.
Okay, yeah, we're totally different.
So I am more lover girl vibes, I would say, a little more Delulu and more mystical.
And I'm definitely the opposite of all of that.
How would you describe yourself?
I'm practical. I'm grounded. I'm the voice of reason for the most part. But then there are those moments where I get on the Delulu train with you.
Because I'm like, I'm on a hike and I've noticed this pattern of my dad's childhood and my brothers and this guy and and then God told me this and then my yoni practice told me that and then you're like, oh shit, this is real because the way it's connected, I mean, you can't deny that. But then I'm like, you're the voice of reason that sometimes I'm like in this like, it's all connected and then I'm like, and also like, who the fuck knows?
Yeah, and then I'm like, and maybe it's not.
Yeah.
And also, it doesn't mean anything.
Right. And it means everything. So we're going to be somewhere in between those two lands. Welcome. All right. I'll go first since I got the space helmet here.
Okay.
What signs do you look for to know if someone is emotionally available? It's a good one. You can get started with that.
Okay. What signs? Well, first of all, I think that communication is key, right? So communication, how responsive they are. And is this talking about romantic relationships?
Yeah.
Or, okay, so when it pertains to romantic relationships, communication is number one. And I'm sure you're probably going to agree with me on that. So communication, how responsive are they? Are they able to articulate feelings? Are they engaging with me? Are they answering questions? Are they asking me questions? Are they genuinely, authentically curious? The second thing I would say is authenticity, like how authentic I feel they are. So communication, authenticity. And I guess to give you a little bit more context in regard to the authentic piece, I think that we innately know when somebody is being disingenuous. And I think sometimes when you like somebody, especially romantically, we tend to chameleon into what we think they might like. And I feel like when you're a connected person, when you're aware, conscious, you can feel that and you can sense that. And I think that sometimes often that creates the sort of wedge between your ability to connect and not to connect, because you can see that disingenuous thing. And I would say the third thing, let's see. I don't know. I think the third thing would probably be how quickly they do what they say they're going to do. I think that that's like a big one. Because if you, let's just, for example, say the person that you're with or you're attracted to or you're into is great at communication, they're really authentic, and they say that they're going to do something and then they don't do it. And then they say they're going to do something again, they don't do it. They say they're going to do something and then they don't do it again. At that point, it's like this person has no follow through. And I think that's really important when you have any type of relationship, romantic or friendship. So actions, I guess. Actions speak louder than words. And to me, I've always said, people will show you who they are. They're always going to show you. People talk all the time, lip service. They can just tell you, you know, who they are and the type of person they are, what's important to them, their values. But to me, actions are always going to speak louder. So those are my three.
Do you see yourself one day starting a podcast, writing books, speaking on stages, sharing your message with the world? But the thing is, you are afraid that you're not a good enough speaker yet. Maybe you're inspired by people like me and Gabby Bernstein, and you know you have it within yourself too, but you just don't know where to start. Well, I have gotten this question so many times, and this is why I've created my Speak with Soul 21-day method. This guides you from awkward to confident speaker in just 3 weeks' time. I guide you through daily prompts, practices, and share all of the wisdom that I have learned as a professional speaker, podcaster, author, and someone who literally makes a living sharing my voice as well as through music, and how you can too in your own unique way. So the testimonials from Speak with Soul are insane. I have seen people literally be hired to host their own radio shows. Hundreds of people start their own podcasts, create YouTube channels, IG live series, get book deals, the list goes on. So whether you want to professionally share your voice or just get better in conversation and connection and just feel more confident in what you say and not feel like you're so in your head, and release any fears or hesitations you have around the way that your voice sounds and its pitch, well, this course covers all of it. So it's just 10-minute daily videos for 21 days that I promise you, if you follow this process, you will be a completely other person on the other side. Because the truth is, when is the last time you spent any time on your speaking? For most of us, it was like maybe an awkward speech in high school and we never touched it again. So speaking is the way that we communicate with the world. It's the most important thing we can do. It's the way that we get our message across. And I know if you're listening to this podcast, you have a really important message to share, because regular people don't listen to this podcast. So if you're feeling the call, come join me in Speak with Soul. I have a special 25% off discount for you listed below. So head over to the show notes or over to speakwithsoul.com speakwithsoulcourse.com. That's speakwithsoulcourse.com to receive the 25% off right now. And you can also find that link in the show notes. I'm so excited to hopefully be on your podcast. Do you want to know your greatest erogenous zone? Your mind. This is why all the ladies are talking about fairy sex. I mean, let's be real. We get turned on by our thoughts. We get turned on by thinking about encounters, even if they've never happened. Just reading the words or let alone listening to them gets us super juicy. So this is why I'm obsessed with Dipsea. They're an app full of hundreds of short, sexy audio stories designed by women for women. So personally, I would love to have a fantasy around like just a Dirty Dancing Havana Nights moment. I feel like that would be really sexy. Maybe we're bachata dancing, or maybe you're into the fairies or the Vikings or an adventurous vacation fling. Whatever your thing is, Dipsea has a story for you. Plus, they're super inclusive with stories for both straight and queer listeners, and 56% of stories are voiced by people of color. So for listeners of the show, Dipsea is offering an extended 30-day free trial when you go to dipseastories.com/Sahara. That's 30 days of full access for free when you go to DIPSEA stories.com/Sahara. You can find that link in the show notes.
So trust your intuition, trust your inner wisdom, trust your inner guidance, close your eyes and listen.
I love that. Yeah, in my own journey, I would say dating emotionally unavailable men was for sure the first year and a half of it. And doing a lot of deep shadow work on why that was. It was because to a level I was emotionally unavailable. And I really sat with the medicine of what does it even mean to be emotionally available, right? And I feel to be emotionally available is to also be open to the inevitable pain that happens in a relationship.
Yeah.
When you're still recovering from the former pain, you just can't be emotionally available to someone else because you don't have the bandwidth to potentially get your heart broken again. And by the way, any relationship will break your heart, whether it is you actually breaking up or you staying together for the rest of your life and continuing to break each other's heart, which actually is like even more heartbreaking, you know?
That's true.
And so if you're still like, so I remember looking back on like right after my divorce, I was like, I really want to be in, because I'm such a relationship person. I'm like, I really want to be in a relationship. Why isn't it happening? Clearly, now looking back on it, it's like, could I have handled another heartbreak then? No, I could not have handled it. So subconsciously, I was choosing men who I knew it wasn't going to go anywhere with, because then I wouldn't have to have my heart broken.
I have a question. I'm like, I don't want to interrupt your train of thought, but it's just like, I love when we have these conversations because I'm like, okay, but in that experience, like when you were in that, did you know that you were talking to somebody that was emotionally unavailable, like inside?
Yes, I knew.
Okay.
I knew.
How did you know that? Like, what was the sense?
Because I would choose them based on who they were rather than how they were with me. And so I feel a lot of times when we are emotionally unavailable, and again, I'm saying this, that this was in my own self, I would choose them based on their career inspired me. I like how they looked. Mostly those two. I'm like, what else? Yeah, that was it.
So it was the external. It was like
it was the
superficial.
external. I was choosing them based on the external. I knew that these were not going to be people who I would have a future with. You could be emotionally available to one person and not to another. So now I'm going to say, having been receiving this, if a man is emotionally unavailable to you, it means he doesn't want to be with you, period. Because that same man is emotionally available to someone else.
Yeah.
Or he might not be. He might be emotionally available to everyone. But most men you talk to, when it's like their girl that they know, like this is the one, then all of a sudden they're saying things they've never said before, doing things they've never done before, acting in ways they never have before. And like we've talked about this, it is like in relationships, it's like the man like recognizes the woman and he's just like, that's my girl. Like, I want to be with you. And then all of a sudden, like he has to be with all these emotions. He has to have these vulnerable conversations. Otherwise he's going to lose her. So he's like, fuck, like I have to. If he doesn't really care about you that much, then he can breadcrumb you. Yeah. He can text you once a week.
Yeah.
He can send you a pic, never respond again. And likely guys like that are typically like really good looking guys or very successful guys. So they have a lot of different options that they don't need to be vulnerable. They don't need to. Yeah. But likely they do have someone that they had their heart broken by And that was the person they were emotionally available with. They had their heart broken. So then they have this shield with everyone else. And now looking back on it, I'm like, why did I even fucking waste my time? You know?
Yeah.
It's like if a guy is in, like people would say this, I would read this, but it was still like, you know, you get on the other side of YouTube where it's like, make him fall in love with you. It's like, if a guy is into you, you'll know.
Yeah.
You will know, and it will be obvious, and there's nothing you can do to actually make him stop, you know?
Yeah.
And if he's not into you, you can do all the dark feminine, eye-gazing, triangle gaze, manifest it, full moon ritual, yoni magic, whatever you want to do, and it's not going to go anywhere. You might get his attention for like 5 minutes, and it's going to go elsewhere.
Yeah.
So
what do you think that's from, though?
The obsession?
Our desire, the obsession.
Because we have this idea of if I'm with that person, that means I am. If I'm with that person, that means, so it's like, look at what your type is, you know, look at like, for me, obviously it was before I was making music. I have other friends that are really attracted to like very intellectual guys, right? Because part of them wants to be more intellectual, you know, but then they're like, it's so annoying. These guys just lecture me all the time, you know? And it's like, okay, well, what part of you wants to learn more, wants to have more information? I have a friend who's very attracted to like funny guys, you know, who are like very lighthearted and free-spirited. But then it's like, okay, you know, her journey is actually like becoming a comedian. Like that is something she has in herself. And I find that like we get attracted to these guys who we want to be like, and often they are emotionally unavailable because it's not actually about the relationship. When you start dating someone in a relational context, that person's not really, they're kind of your muse, but not really. Like that person's more of like a partner to you. And you start to like look at them not through like, I want to be you, but like, I want to be with you. And it's like super different.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. All right, your turn.
All right, here, let me see. Space helmet.
Interplanetary, megastatic, hydrostatic. There's no gravity between us. Our love is automatic. Zoom, zoom, zoom. Make my heart go boom, boom. My supernova girl.
Oh my God. Okay.
Do you know that song?
I don't.
Xenon, girl of the 21st century.
No. What year was this? 2000?
Yeah. It was a Disney Channel original movie. If you know, you know.
Oh, okay. No judgment. That sounds amazing. All right. Well, this is going to be really interesting. I'm curious how you're going to answer this.
Oh, okay.
What do you do when you realize you've had a past lifetime with the person? And is this something you have experienced?
I just wrote a song about it. It's some past life shit. I'll link it below. I believe everyone who is in our lives, we have had past lives with. Like, I believe you and I have had many past lives together. I believe we have our soul clan that we travel with throughout lifetimes. So it's like our literal family, like our mother, father, et cetera, our best friends, significant lovers in our lives, but we play different roles with them. So maybe in a lifetime, you were my mother and I was your daughter. Maybe in a lifetime, I was your mother and you were my daughter or my son. Maybe we were both brothers together. Maybe we were married at some point. I think we were all of these things, you know? Definitely we were married. But so your souls try different dances with different people. Like I could feel very much like with my mom, like I was for sure her mom in another lifetime. Like I feel like she just gets scared of a lot of things. Like we stayed in it was her first time in an Airbnb. We went to this like Persian festival in Canada and she did not want to get out of the car because she was afraid someone was hiding in the Airbnb. And I was just like, it's okay. Like, do you want me to go in there first? And, you know, and it's like, obviously she has like trauma from the war and stuff, but it was just like, I don't know. Like, I just was like, as maybe especially as we get older, I'm just like, I feel like I'm in many ways mothering you right now. And, you know, and I think we just play these different things. Now, in terms of like lovers, I will also have a podcast episode called How to Know If You Have a Past Life with someone that I go into this specifically in relationships. We'll also link that below. Wow. I will say that you can kind of feel the archetypes and roles you play with someone pretty early on in the dynamic. So there are some people that you meet and it's like spicy and sexy and it's like this like chemistry, but then often it like blows up just as fast, you know? And there's situations like that. And then there are other ones that it's like you and them feel like you were like a mom and a dad in a past life. And like all of a sudden it's like you just start like manifesting like very mom and dad situations and like your rapport feels like that energy.
So it's almost like you're picking up from that energy
from that lifetime.
Okay.
Exactly. Then other past lives. It's like you're really creative together, and all of a sudden you're like coming up with like ideas together and you're channeling things together. And it's like you probably like creative partners in a past life. So I feel like often what happens is like when it's like in same sex, a guy and a girl, or like whoever you're attracted to, the first thing we go to is like, oh, you must be my like boyfriend or potential lover. And sometimes you start like that, and then the relationship shows you what the underlying past life dynamic is. I also believe in past lives, like big partners in your life, like likely have soul contracts with you to break your heart. Like the Wachuma medicine really helped me see the full circle of my marriage of, going into that when I was 24 years old. And, I really became an author and became so much, but then eventually for me to continue to grow, it needed to be outside of that relationship, but I would have never left it. It manifested in him cheating and telling me about it. And the marriage was done, and it sent me into the biggest heartbreak and dark night of the soul that really took me on a spin, but also helped me become who I was meant to become in this next stage of my life. And I can see it now moving forward. For sure, him and I had past lives together. And for sure, our souls decided like, I'm going to love you more than anyone ever has. And I'm going to break your heart more than anyone ever has. And to me, that's like the ultimate seva, the ultimate service to like volunteer to be the villain in someone else's story. Because that takes so much love to be like, I'm going to hurt you and you're going to hate me. And that's what you need to become the shining light for the world that you're here to be. And I have to be the bad guy for it. And that's also like their karma of being the bad guy in that situation. And it helps them grow and up level. And it really just helped me see like, I believe so much of this is destined, so much of the ways that we interact with people. Sometimes you're like saying something to someone, you don't even realize it's going to hurt them. It sets them through their own dark night of the soul. And I believe all of this is related to past lives. I also believe it's ancestral, that like we get to the level of consciousness of our, grandparents and we stand upon their shoulders. So a lot of times it's their unfinished business. So like one of my grandmothers was in an arranged marriage when she was a child and never got to really choose someone for love. And so for me in this lifetime, it's all about like love and like really having that connection and not repeating that story in the lineage of a man who's always working and emotionally unavailable and a woman who sacrifices her entire life for her family and never receives love. So I think it's past lives, it's ancestral, it's karmic, and the more and more I go on my spiritual journey, the less I believe in free will. I'm like, this shit is destined. So curious your take.
Oh yeah, no, I don't believe in past lives at all. So this is—
You don't believe that? This is the first time you're telling me this. You don't, so you believe this is it?
No, I do believe in past lives. Of course I believe in past lives. I think that we, I don't know that we fully understand what it is. I do believe that there is a soul recognition that is this sort of repetitive, almost fractal template that happens. I do believe that. And I do think that, much like you said, that we reincarnate or we come back with communities and people that have had, there's no other explanation for when you meet people and you're just like, okay, wait, like there's something that I recognize with this person. I know with Tori, when we first, got together, I was like, I know this person. Like there was just this instant sort of recognition of like, I've been here before, and I know it's hard, people here obviously will get on board with that. And I remember actually going to do a psychic reading, and of all the things the psychic told me, this was the one thing that really stayed with me, and I really loved it because it made me feel good, whether it's true or not. Like she said a bunch of other things that did not happen, but this one thing that she said really stayed with me. And she said, you and your partner have been together many lifetimes and you will continue to choose each other every single lifetime. And I was like, oh, like I love that. And I feel that, and there is this sort of comfort knowing that the person I'm with, it's not our first time together, So in a way, yes, I do want to believe that. Like I want to believe that is what's going to happen.
What's holding you back from believing
Well, it's just like the practicality of life. It's like, is there a destiny? Are we meant to, make this choice and it's going to lead to this and it's going to lead to that? And it's like, do we have
So you don't
free
believe
will?
in destiny either.
I get torn, I get torn. I
We
feel
have
like
totally different.
no, because it's like, I do believe in dharma. Like I do believe that we have a purpose, but I also believe that we have a choice to fulfill that purpose. I don't know that we're here and we're like on a path and we have to achieve it. I think that some people have a dharma, they have a purpose, and they might not fulfill it in this lifetime, right? So I do like to believe that there are moments of cause and effect. And, it's like chaos theory, right? A butterfly flaps her wings and it causes, a hurricane, I don't know, however many
Right. But is that chaos or is that like perfect synchronicity?
I think it's just, but I think that that's a matter of belief. Again, it's like how you and I differ, right? You can see it as a certain way. In Tantra, in Tantra, everything is Sri. Everything is resplendence. Everything is full. Everything is vibrant. Resplendence. Yeah. So Sri, S-R-I. So in Tantra, the belief is that everything is just so full of vibrancy and so full of life and beautiful and perfect and just resplendent, right? And in the more like Buddhist tradition is everything is just, the minute you attach meaning to something, it's like you're already in attachment, which is going to take you out of the state of being present. So none of it matters. At the end of the day, it's like, it just is. Right?
This could be a whole other podcast about like your Buddhist, right? Because it's like, to me, that like, I really tried fucking with the law of detachment. And I'm just like, you can't love. You can't love to be like, I love you, but only for now in this present moment. I never know if I'm going to see you again. It's like
no, but that's not detachment though. But that's not. But that's
attached. We're attached.
Okay, we're attached. But ultimately, our attachment is what leads to our suffering. I mean, I
think you would suffer more if I ghosted you than if.
Okay.
Than accepting that we're attached.
Yeah, because I'm not saying it's like because I believe things are a certain way doesn't mean that it's not going to hurt me. That's the thing. Even talking about the heartbreak, it's like you can't avoid heartbreak. And at the end of the day, is somebody else breaking your heart or are you breaking your own heart?
Yeah, you're breaking your own. But here's the thing. It's like the way that love works is like you have to have a level of expectation. If every time you walked out of the door, I had to be like, and that's maybe the last time I ever heard from Rosie. Like I couldn't build a friendship with you, let alone a romantic relationship, let alone have children with someone.
But then you're putting conditions on the love. Then at that point,
maybe you will die and get hit by a car. But if I keep thinking
you would
that,
be so miserable.
I really tried. Because it's like after going through a big divorce like that, you're just like, nothing is forever except my swag. And that's the fact. It is the fact.
This is true.
However, I don't know if you'll be in my life forever. I really don't. I can't guarantee that. But my intention is for that. I can only love for that, especially if you're in a romantic relationship with someone. Like the further along you get in a romantic relationship, you start making plans for like 2 weeks in advance, 1 month for advance, 6 months in advance. And that's showing like, I'm here for the long run. And there's a level of safety that creates.
Yeah, but you're proving my point though.
No, but the feminine especially, and I think the masculine, needs that safety to open and love. If I'm like complete law of detachment, I can never have the safety that it requires for me to open up and be vulnerable. And because that can only come from knowing that you're going to stay.
Sure. And I agree with that. I totally agree with that. And I think that sort of the ideology or the belief system that to attach is to suffer, right? That's the whole premise in Buddhist philosophy.
And to attach is to love.
I don't necessarily think that that's true.
So you want me an Osho fuck girl? Like that's what he was saying, and I love Osho, but I'm like, let's look at how that panned out for him.
Yeah, no. I think overall, look, I mean,
Sheila loved him more than anyone ever did. He should have said yes to that.
No, but and look, these are the conversations that we have. Like these are the conversations that we have, and I think they're really good conversations.
And I tried, girl. You saw. I went on a date with a ethically non-monogamous guy.
Yeah. And
I was like, okay, let me try this. It feels foreign to me, but who knows?
No, I think,
and I was just like, the whole time I'm like, he's like telling me all his traumas, his life stories, this. I was like, you have a girlfriend.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to hear this, you know?
Yeah.
Because if I'm not committed to you,
Yeah.
I don't want to hold space. I only see you as fun for right now then.
Yeah.
And then it's like, but then it's like such a cut off from your humanity.
It's self-serving.
And it's also not obviously what he wanted either.
Right.
You know, he wouldn't be investing into telling me all of these things. He clearly wanted a future too. So it's just like, I was just like, I don't understand how you can like build a relationship while simultaneously being like, but don't expect me to never call you back.
Yeah, I mean, look, I understand what you're saying, and I agree with you to a point, but I think we're kind of saying the same thing.
Okay, to attach is to suffer is to love. You can't have one without the other. Okay. So you want to be
agree to agree.
So yeah, so the choice is have no attachments, be on the mountain in the Himalayas, have no desires, don't eat food, don't masturbate, shave your head, and do that. You just won't feel anything, but at least you won't suffer. Or fall in love, get your heart broken, get your knee scraped, get messy, fuck up, have orgasms, eat the good food, gain weight, lose weight, be on the human journey.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Tantra Buddhism.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's a little bit more complex than that. But look, I think it's a balance, man. It's totally a balance. It's not.
I find myself like I was again with this law of detachment. I was like, how can I love without expectations? And I'm like, every time, like if I start to like someone, and I'm like, but don't expect anything, I can't actually like them. I can't actually enjoy them because I'm psyching myself out of this is going to end really soon. Don't get your hopes up, you know? And then that's like kind of like when I started my career in my dharma, like when I first met Deepak Chopra and he wrote the foreword of my book and all these things were happening. I was like, well, the second shoe's about to drop. Like, you know, things are going good right now, but they're probably going to go bad. And it was when Deepak told me, I was like, because he made an Facebook Live about Kriya and how life is meant to be lived in a state of flow. And I emailed him and I said, Dr. Chopra, can life always be in a state of flow, or do periods of flow need to be followed by periods of inertia, right? We have the flow, we have the synchronicities, but we need the stillness and the winters. And he was like, Sahara, if life's not always in a state of flow, then something's off. And he has adapted himself to that lifestyle. The guy's written over 100 books. He's like one of the most prolific people of our times because he's always in flow. He doesn't have resistance to flow.
Yeah.
He's writing a book on an airplane. He's, you know, giving a talk. He's not in his head around, oh, now I need to not do anything for this period of time. And because some people have that, right?
Yeah.
And it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy,
right.
you know? So it's like, I'm choosing, and again, I'm not perfect at this and I'm learning myself of like, I'm going to continue to open my heart and continue to love and, you know, heartbreak will happen. But if I keep bracing myself and like trying to find it and expect it, then I will just create it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Work in progress.
Yeah, no, and I agree with all of that. And look, Deepak, he's, you know, the GOAT, you know, like he's so great. And, you know,
we're going to take his advice.
We're totally going to take his advice. And at the end of the day, look, again, going back to the Buddhist sentiment, you know, you are perfectly unique, just like everyone else.
Yes, that's true.
So love that.
All right. Next question. You're both incredible authors. What advice do you have to someone who's ready to write their first book?
Ooh, okay. God. Well, I come from a little bit of a different school of thought, and I'm curious. I know what your process has been in the past. I'm curious what your process is now, if it's changed with your new chapter. I'm like the type of person, I don't like to talk about what I'm doing. I like to just do it. I'm not the type of person that needs a lot of feedback in the beginning, because I feel like, you know, when you're really excited about something, have you ever been in a situation where it's so new and it's so fresh, and you feel like if somebody gives you the wrong opinion or reaction, it's going to take you out of the experience? I've had that happen to me so many times. And writing is such a special medium for me that it's the one thing that I really safeguard and I really hold close to my chest until I'm ready and I feel like I want to expose it to the elements. So for me, I would say if somebody out there is wanting to write a book or they're wanting to go on a creative journey, I would say give yourself the time and space to develop your idea and nurture it. And when you're ready to get feedback or ask for advice, I would absolutely, I'm all about getting advice and opinions and, feedback from the right people in the right time. And even if you don't hear what you want to hear, keep going. Like that's what I would say to that person.
Have you recently gone through a heartbreak that rocked your world? And honestly, you're still maybe picking up the pieces. You've learned so much from this experience, but you also know there's so much more awaiting you. And probably you have an intuitive sense that this was meant to happen for you to become your highest self. Well, I've been there. At the end of 2022, I found out that my then husband had been cheating on me. And it was the most horrible news I've ever gotten. But now looking back on it, I can say it was my life's greatest blessing. Because without that, I would have never left the marriage where honestly, we were quite incompatible in many different ways. But it took me getting to that level for me to actually see what was not working in the relationship and for me to set off and create this new life where I traveled the world for a year, started producing music, singing, rapping, dropped an album called My Body is an Altar that has hundreds of thousands of streams around Spotify, creating music videos, moving to LA, dressing in these really cute outfits, becoming my fullest expression, and most importantly, not having anything in my consciousness that I'm afraid of anymore. I have become truly liberated. And that is the gift of a heartbreak. So all my friends would come to me when they would go through their heartbreaks. I know a lot of people are in it right now. And this is why I've decided to create my ultimate heartbreak healing course. So it guides you step by step with the exact tools and realizations that I used on myself during my heartbreak that have allowed me to not just heal from it, but become this version of me that I am frankly obsessed with. So for 33 days, every single day, I will be guiding you through a practice. Journal prompt, will be writing poetry, healing and transmuting so much, but most importantly, taking this as the opportunity for you to become the version of you that you've always felt it was too soon to be. So I'm so excited for you to get started. As soon as you join the course, you can get started on day one. I have seen insane transformations and I can't wait to see what awaits you on the other side. So head over to iamsahararose.com/heartbreak and use coupon code podcast for $50 off. Again, that's iamsahara, SAHARA, rose.com/heartbreak and use coupon code podcast for $50 off. You can find that link in the show notes and I'm super excited for you to meet the version of you that's on the other side. Yeah, so I just taught my Blueprint to Bestseller weekend and I'll have the waitlist for that below, which is all about like getting started on writing your book. And one of the first things that I teach is connecting to the soul of your book, because I believe that every single book has its own soul. And it's a vibration. It's an energy that's living in the field, that's living in the cosmos, that's waiting to come through. And it chooses the people that can bring it into reality. And it chooses multiple. That's why sometimes we like write the similar books, but it's like through our own personalities and life experiences that it becomes different. It's a journey through our own chakra system. So connecting to the soul of your book. So for me, like the way that my book ideas have come, it's often in like when I'm on a walk or a stream of consciousness or I'm writing or I'm voice memoing or something like that. And I just feel like this is like a concept I have, like an overarching like concept, which is always related to my own life experiences, right? So like healing through Ayurveda, but making it modern, like that's a concept right there. Discovering your Dharma, tuning into your soul's purpose, that's a concept right there. And, I was writing this book about joy, like the joy codes and different things like that. So I find that it's like a core concept that is the result of lessons that you've learned in your life that has been crystallized into this like message that you can then share to other people. So connecting to what that message is. And it's often something that you have embodied 3 to 7 years ago. So for example, 3 years ago, so this, if you're listening to this now in 2021, what were you thinking about before you fell asleep? What were you Google searching? What conversations were you wanting to have? What were you worried about? What were the things that you were like not sure about that now you're on the other side of? And those are the things that now you feel in a good enough, spacious enough space to be able to share about, right? So maybe 3 years ago, you woke up with like really crippling anxiety and you went on an anxiety healing journey and you learned how to meditate. And now, of course, you might still have anxiety, but you're not like knee deep in it. You've found your way on the other side. That's a book you can now write about because you're not still in it, but you're not so far away from it. It wasn't you 10 plus years ago that you can't even remember what it's like, right? So for me, like, that's why I would not write a book about like how to like have lifelong relationship and marriage. Like now, like I'm not in that, right? But I do feel in a few years, I will probably write a book about all of these lessons that I've learned, but I've chosen not to now because I'm still learning it. I'm still in it right now. However, a book about discovering your Dharma, I could write 100 books on that because I've been living my Dharma for so long that I'm like, oh, I know what it's like from 20 feet away from it. Whereas if I was like still in the process of like stepping in my purpose for the first time, I could have written a book about it, but I would still not have known everything I know before. However, right now it's kind of so far back for me that like I probably wouldn't have written as good of a book as I did when I wrote that book 5 years ago. Yeah. Because when I wrote that book 5 years ago, I could, even though it was a stretch for me to like remember what it was like to not believe I have a purpose, that I can't make money doing what I love, I could still access it more. I've been making money doing what I love for so long now that it's not the book I would write today. Yeah. So I find write the thing that you're on the other side from 3 to 7 years ago that you can remember what it's like to have those thoughts, to have those insecurities, but you're further away from it that it's like you can see the bigger picture view that only having space from it would give you.
Yeah. Can you speak a little bit more to people doing things too quickly?
Yeah. So I feel because of the social media culture, we feel like we need to be on the other side and have a lesson and share it like instantly. I see this a lot in like the spiritual Instagram coaching world because social media has inherently kind of made us a bit, what's the right way to say this? Here, there's a shadow and a light side to it. Do I believe we need to be PhDs and have doctorates and study something for a million years to share about it? No. Do I believe if I had anxiety, do I want to go to the person who's read 1 million books about anxiety or the person who was super anxious 3 years ago and found their way on the other side? I want to go to that person. That being said, if that person is still hella anxious and has not found their way on the other side and is writing posts about it, that's also not who I want to go to. So there's a happy medium here. Write and share about something that you've experienced that's real for you. You don't need to be the expert in it, but also be honest with where you are on your journey. You don't need to pretend you're the expert. And I see a lot of people, they take what they see other people are posting that seems to be successful. So like everyone's sharing about like manifestation. They all start sharing about manifestation. So everyone's sharing about human design. They also share about human design. That can be a good starting point, but the more that you can add your own flair to it. And by the way, the thing that people really want is your vulnerability. Yeah. The thing that people want is to know that you still struggle, but how you're overcoming it on the other side. So I see like backlash of like, these coaches don't know anything. You're not a therapist. And there's that. And then there's like oh, you don't need to even go to coaching school. Like just start coaching. And it's like, while you don't technically need to go to coaching school, had I not gone to coaching school, there's no way I would have known how to be like how to coach people. Had I not hired coaches, there's no way I would have known how to coach people. But ultimately, my experience of coaching people hundreds and hundreds of times is what also has made me see it's not just how I've overcome something. Now I have to see how someone else overcomes something, and like that's what we really need to be a coach. And I feel a lot of us, we want to be like experts in something, but to be the expert is also not just your personal experience, but to be able to see that problem in a lot of different people.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, let's see what the magical space hat.
Interplanetary megastatic. There's no gravity.
All right, let's see here. Oh, this is a longie, but a goodie. I think this one came out from my DMs. What do you do when you can tell your partner needs a break, but you don't? This doesn't mean a permanent relationship break, just like some physical space.
Well, you're in a partnership, so I don't need to answer that.
I mean, I guess you can answer it maybe from a friendship perspective. Okay. Yeah, when my partner needs a break. Okay, so I'm definitely way more like
Don't worry, he doesn't listen.
We've
confirmed he does not listen.
I'm definitely more physically needy than he is, for
Most
sure.
women are.
I would say. So I can pretty much tell when he needs, and it's not that I don't feel that he needs space from me per se. Maybe he just needs more personal space. You know, we live together. We both work from home, even though we have separate studios. Like, we're kind of around each other. We try to have at least a meal together. Typically it's dinner. Sometimes we do lunch. Like, so it is nice to be around your partner, but I would say I've experienced it as well when I'm like, I just can't, I don't want to look at you. I don't want to smell you. I don't want to hear your voice. I don't want to hear you chewing. Like, I need you to not be here. I'm fortunate I have a space where I can go to a different room or a different space, but I guess there's been situations where somebody asking for space and I don't want the space, like when he's very clearly made it a point that he's preoccupied and he doesn't maybe want me around asking him questions or harping on him to do a house project. It still hurts my feelings, you know, like, even though I'm a pretty tough person, seeing that somebody that you love doesn't want to be in the physical same space, like, my instant reaction is like, well, fuck you then. Like, I don't want to hang out with you anyway. Like, I'll go hang out with somebody else. I don't need to be around you. So we create that instant block where it's like, oh, you want space? I'll give you space. And I've done that before where it's like, oh, you don't want me around? Fine. And I'll just take off and I won't come back for hours and hours and hours, you know? But that's just coming from a place of being hurt, right? So I'm internally hurt because it feels like a rejection, right? So I actually really love this question because clearly what I just described is not his problem. It's a me problem, because obviously it's hurting me. It's hurting my heart. It's hurting my energy. I feel rejected. I feel like maybe I did something and am I being annoying? I don't want to be annoying to the person that I love the most. Then it makes you insecure. It makes you self-conscious. How often does this happen? Do I do this a lot? Does he feel this way a lot? Is he tired of me? Right? You go into this cycle of, what did I do? Right? So I think in those moments now, it used to be a lot worse before, but I think now I just take it for what it is. And, you know, you just give people a little bit of space. Could be a couple hours, could be a day. You know, obviously we sleep in the same bed. So, and this is the only person that I've ever had this experience before, but it's the person that I love the most that it hurts with the most. So my advice would be to, you know, really do some self-inquiry, ask yourself what it is about the situation that makes you feel hurt. Like, I had to sit down and really ask myself, like, why does this hurt me so bad? Because it's always going to go into a childhood wound of some sort, abandonment, feeling rejected or not feeling like you're enough. And so the minute that you can really acknowledge that and sit with that, I think it really helps your capacity to deal with somebody needing some space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. And I'll just add something that we can do to help. And I remember in my relationship and in general, men do require more space and women require more closeness. We connect through oxytocin. They're connecting more through vasopressin, which is like problem solving. And the core feminine wound is abandonment, you know, because women historically had been abandoned. And when you have a baby and you're abandoned, it's like detrimental. Whereas men have gone out and fought wars. So being on their own is a lot easier because for thousands of years they had done that. So it's like we're all kind of experiencing the same thing. I will say what helped me was to know when we were going to reconnect. So having something like on the calendar, or we're going to have dinner at this time. So then I know if he's ignoring me or he's busy or whatever, like it's like, okay, he's working. and I'm going to see him at 7, or this week is crazy for him and we're not going to really have dinner or anything this week, but on the weekend, we're going to do this. That would let me know like, okay, this is when we're going to reconnect. But when there wasn't like a tangible thing on the calendar or something like that, or if it would be for long periods of time, that's when I would feel really disconnected and sad. And, and then that makes you kind of like, be like, do you even care about me? And like coming out in these like maybe shadowy ways that can like come off as like for the guy like needy, and I feel like that's like a big ick for the masculine as well. So I find just like, even if you're in the beginning of a relationship, having like, okay, like maybe during the day they work and you don't get to hear from them. It's like, can you have a call in the morning or a call in the evening, and just having these like bookends so like this person still cares about me, because what are we scared of? We're scared you're just going to stop caring,
Yeah, it's funny that you're saying that. It just reminded me of, oh my God, it's so funny. Like I've not actually thought about this in so long, but I used to get so irate when Tori wouldn't respond to my texts. When I would want to do that, like what you're saying is exactly great, true. It's like you have something to look forward to, or you have a plan of when you're going to connect. There's a sort of solution,
when you're
right?
not living together, it's like, am I going to see you?
Yeah. And I remember he didn't respond quick enough, or it was like a couple hours. And I remember really sort of like leaning like just, I was a savage. I was like, listen, I don't know what you've been doing, but I've been texting you and you've not responded. Clearly, I can see that you got my text message. Like, what are you doing just staring at it? Why can't you just respond? Like, what is taking you so long?
Inner Latina coming out.
Right? And, I just remember having this, and he was so kind and so compassionate and was like super apologetic. He was like, I'm really sorry. I was in the middle of these things and they had a leak. He used to have a store on Santa Monica. We had a big leak in the shop, and there was water everywhere. We were trying to pick up boxes so that my inventory wouldn't get. And it was a big mess.
And men are so single focused.
Totally.
That like if they're doing something, they're doing it. We naturally we're gatherers, right?
Yeah.
So we're like having this conversation and we're doing this and we're doing that. Like, I mean, we always take screenshots of like, because Rosie and I are in contact 24 hours a day until she goes to sleep really early, and then I have to deal with my shit by myself. Annoying.
What is that like for you, by the way?
Girl, I had to like go through my 4th of July issue alone. It was challenging. But I will say I'm noticing like how men, when they're working, they're just working. And bless that. Like they need to be like that for them to be like slaying. And, and you want to be with a man who's doing that. You don't want like a guy who's a really good texter, who's also checking Instagram stories, who's also this, it's fucking cheater. Like I swear, those guys are the cheaters. If a guy, like now looking back on it, I used to think last year, if a guy's looking at my Instagram story, he likes me. Now I'm like, oh, you do this to everyone. I don't want to be with a guy who's looking at random girls' Instagram stories, period.
Yeah.
If it started with you liking and hearting my stories and I didn't know you, that means you're that kind of guy. I want to be with a guy that doesn't have Instagram,
right?
And that to me is very attractive about someone. Like you can have Instagram, but not to use Instagram.
Yeah.
Definitely not to be like liking girls' stories on there. Cause I'm just like, you have no life. Like you're distracted. Like, what are you doing all day, bro?
Yeah.
Focus.
Right?
But then when you're like someone and he's focusing, you're like, me.
Yeah. All of a sudden you're like,
you don't care about me. What are you doing? Here's a picture of me. Do you like my hair? Respond.
I think having a balance is good. I think it's good to have those moments too,
And I think guys, and I mean, I guess like you just got to do it your own way. But guys have told me that like women before have been like, why aren't you responding to me? And that has felt like a lot to them, kind of like what you did to Tori.
Oh.
And like they didn't like that, whereas Tori was down for that, but that's like who you are. So it's like, be yourself,
Well, and by the way, this is still who I am.
Yeah.
And just last week, I mean, this, we're the same way, but it's like, just last week, I sent him a text and I'm like, hello, like what? The phone is in your pocket. I hear it. It's really loud because I put all the ringtones on there to make sure they're really loud so you can hear when I text him.
Do you still go through his phone 21 years later?
I mean, it's not, I don't know that.
Yes.
Yes.
Because I was texting about your birthday and I was like, I bet you Rosie's going to read this.
Oh, no, I didn't. I didn't see.
Okay.
I've not seen.
You haven't looked in the past few days.
No, I haven't looked in the past couple of days. I've not looked. But yeah, you know, I'll go on. I mean, he's so not a social media person, you know, and I love the fact that he's an artist and he spends his time doing, like he's a doer. He's building, he's designing, he's like in his craft, which I've always really loved, or he's doing house things, you know, building things. Like that's sort of his way. And I like that he doesn't have the phone in his hand 24/7. Although I do want him to have it on when I'm texting him because he needs to be responsive. And you know what's interesting? It's last week, you know, I was texting and I really needed to know something. Well, we like quick responses, you know.
We do.
Especially if we're in an experience, like we want feedback, or it's like, I'm going to ask you something, like I'm going to try and get back to you right away, right? That's just with everybody. You know, I actually saw this TikTok, learned it on TikTok, that said that people who are the most successful people in the world are the most responsive.
I believe that. I remember reading once that you should always reply to an email instantly, because if you don't, you're actually spending more time in thinking about that you haven't responded to that email. And then every time you go back to reread the email, that instead of just writing, even if it's like on your phone, a 1-sentence reply that would have taken you less than 1 minute, you've now given it 10 minutes, maybe 20 minutes of how many times you've thought about it. So that's why for me, like, I think everyone probably thinks I have a crush on them. I respond to everyone instantly, you know? That's why I don't know how to play hard to get. I'm just like, I see the text, I just respond to it. But I don't like guys who, if a guy takes days to respond to me, I'm just like, I can't even connect with you.
What is that?
I'm like, what is wrong with, like,
what is
who
that,
doesn't?
though?
Okay, I will say some people are not good texters, because I have some girlfriends who are like that. By the way, they're all Scorpios. It's always the Scorpios. And some people are just like, they get overwhelmed by the amount of texts they have. So then they're just like, okay, I'm going to get to my texts one day. And then they let it pile up. And then they have like 100 people they need to reply to. So then they don't. So I would say a lot of people are like that, you know, and it's like you're an inbox 0 person and inbox 10,000 person. It's the same thing with like text messaging. Yeah, I'm an inbox 0. Like I will, even if I'm not reading them, I will make sure I mark them as read, just so I know the important things are up on my like main email. So same thing with text. Like at the end of the day, I go down my thing just to make sure everyone's like replied to. If I'm not responding to someone for days, it's kind of like a choice, you know? Like it's just something that's not important to me, you know?
Even when you were married?
Well, when you're married, you don't really text. Like we both worked at home. Like
But like, I'm just saying, okay, so if I'm understanding, you're saying text in general, though.
I'm saying text in general, though. Yeah, but when we're married, for sure, I would just probably call more than texting, I guess.
Okay. No, but I'm just saying, like, that level of responsiveness is just who you are.
Yeah, who I am to everyone.
Like, no, that's what I'm saying is that I really think that that's true, because I love what you said about you're either a 0 inbox or 10,000, because that's so true. You know, Tori's definitely a 10,000 email. He has so many unread email. I mean, like, he runs a business, right? So he's just getting hundreds of emails and different things. And it gives me anxiety to see his inbox. I'm like, oh, I just can't. I have to be responsive.
And it gives him anxiety, which is probably why he's not going through it.
Right.
And it's like, you have to just like go in there and like spend like 2 days just like
going through everything.
Responding. And, you know, I see a lot of my friends who have kids.
Yeah.
It's like they were responsive and then now they can't. And that makes total sense, you know? And I think also you prioritize like your message. Like I would never look at it and not respond. Like I could be taking a shit and respond. I could be like getting hit by a car and be like,
I could be in the middle of like,
great thought, Rosie.
I could be in the middle of teaching a meditation. And
you could, theoretically. I could be in the middle of an argument with someone. Rosie, now what do you think? I don't even think my own thoughts yet. I just wait until I voice note them out to you. And then that helps me then think about them. How does that feel to receive? Do you like it? Or do you just kind of let it pass? You can be honest.
There are certain thoughts that you send. Oh my God, I'm getting hot. There are certain thoughts that you said. I don't know. I feel like I just know your I know you so well that I know.
Because you don't process your thoughts out loud the way that I do.
No. I give you a completed, but if sometimes I figure things out as I'm talking to you, though. Yeah, I do sometimes.
But you're more reporter than you are.
Yes,
a processor.
I am.
You more like these are the things that happen. I don't actually tell you anything that I'm doing.
Yeah, no, I just tell you
my
whole itinerary.
And it's always love for me.
Yeah.
You know, but that only started after the divorce when I started to need help in that area.
Yeah,
when I was married, I was reporting too.
Yeah, you were. You were more reporting for sure. Yeah. I think that now, again, what I was going to say is like, I know you so well. I know when thoughts are fleeting and transient. Like I know that you're going to feel different in like 10 minutes or like an hour. I could just tell, I could just hear it, you know, because it's part of you come in the minute you wake. I know your waking up schedule. It's like the minute you wake up, you have this intense thought and it's like you have to get it out, and the minute that it's out,
because we tell our dreams to each other every day.
We tell each other. We
so this is a good friendship hack, guys. Have a friend and every morning voice note them your dream and then analyze each other's dream and then say what your intentions are for that day and what you're grateful for. We do that every day.
But that's a really great, but think about it. So it makes, for me, I love that practice because it makes us so intentional, you know, because it takes me out of the, oh, this is what I have to do today, or I'm answering a question. It's like, okay, wait, what am I grateful for today, or what's happening in this moment?
And we were in that like 10 things we're grateful for a day practice, which we need to bring back because sometimes it can go into, here's the thing though, and this is interesting because sometimes dreams can be negative. Like my dream I shared with you this morning was like a negative thing. And then I was sitting with like, is this the voice of fear, or is it my intuition, or this, that? So it's like, is it better to like sit with the negative feeling or to interrupt it with gratitude?
I think it depends on who you're telling.
Yeah.
Right? So I think I think you and I are very conscious and we're very respectful of each other's boundaries and feelings. And we always do this is a trigger warning, you know, like I think we've talked about that before in a podcast we've done where we might say like, this is a little heavy, or, you know, like listen to this when
we do trigger warnings.
Yeah. I think for me, no, because you know me and I'm, you know, those things don't bother me really. They don't put me in a state. I'm a pretty grounded person. I think for me with you, I definitely filter more. Like there are certain things that I'm just like, she doesn't, you know, like I go and
I tell you my most shadowy of shadow.
She does. But I just feel like for me, like I'm comfortable with the darkness. Not that you're not. You've become way more comfortable with the darkness. But I feel like there's just like certain things where
you're also in a relationship too.
Yeah, and
so I feel like sometimes you would probably bring those things to him.
Yeah, I'll be like, I had a nightmare about this, or you know, it's like. I also watch television. You don't. So there are certain references of something that I watch, you know, and I like to watch scary things. And then it's like, oh, why did I dream of that? Oh, because I was just watching a show about it. There's not much translation that needs to happen there other than, and then me trying to convince you to get a TV.
What about you dreaming of me every night?
What do you think that means?
I think I'm like a TV show in my life.
That's true.
You know, it's in your subconscious. But one question I have for you then, since we're on this like dream topic, is like, how much do you think our dreams are like warning us about something versus our own just fears that we have?
Yeah, I believe I'm a huge advocate and believer of the dream world. Like I've done a lot of research about it, and I'm just so fascinated.
Maybe you need a book on this.
Right? I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
Yoga Nidra and Dream. With the moons.
Yeah. So with the moons, we got to bring the moons somehow. It's going to happen. We're going to do it. But as Sahara said, I'm a big practitioner and I love teaching Yoga Nidra. Nidra means sleep. It's yoga. So it's yogic sleep. And a lot of people are becoming more familiar with it because of Andrew Huberman. He calls it like deep sleep. But he calls it something. Fan. Yeah, like I love I feel like dreams, ever since I was little, I can tell you dreams I had when I was 5. Like there are certain dreams that we have, and I really feel like it speaks to your subconscious. I think that it tells you a lot about yourself because from popular belief, the theory is that everybody in your dream represents a certain part of yourself, right?
Yeah, so is it ever actually about that person, or do you think it's all just you and parts of you?
I don't know. This is where I can get esoteric because I believe in a way, yes, it is a part of you, but I also do believe that we're psychically connected and we're all just part of this huge tapestry that is interwoven with each other. And just like you were saying before, with this sort of like past life recognition, I also believe that intuition plays a really big role in dreams. And I will say that for me, there are certain dreams that I've had that I know every night I dream, something in my dream happens in real life every single night. So
whatever you dream happens in real life.
Yeah. Like it happens in reality. So whether
after you dream it.
After I dream it. So when I wake up, if I dreamt of something like
that day it happens.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Every single time. But it could be as innocuous as I wore the same shoe, like I'm putting the same shoes on. So whether
your dreams are almost like you're dreaming it from the future. And so you're dreaming, it's like giving you a little foreshadow of what's to happen that day.
Then we're going to talk about time being a construct and what is time and is it the future? Is it the present?
See,
I don't know.
She's getting mystical on us.
Okay. All right. So without, maybe we do another podcast on that. But going back to you being in my dream, I think you've been.
So everything you've dreamt of is going to happen.
Not everything. So not everything. There's just always a little portion of something that I dream that.
So what'd you dream of last night?
I'm not going to tell you.
Is that me?
No, but going back to what you were saying about what dreams mean, I feel like if you put a lot of efficacy around your dreams and them meaning something, then they will mean something. If you have a dream, sometimes I have a dream and I'm like, it means nothing. I was exhausted and I watched a scary movie and it doesn't mean anything. Other times I might have a dream and I might feel like, yeah, I might get an intuitive hit and tell you like, yeah, this makes me feel really like, I don't know, uneasy about something, right? Or there's a reoccurring dream like, years ago, before you even started performing, before you even were DJing, I don't know if you remember, I would have these dreams of you like going to the Grammys and like getting a Grammy award and stuff like that. There's voice messages that we can go back and listen to where I was having these dreams. Or why is it that every time I dream about you, it's like always at a festival or like there's always these sort of like reoccurring themes. Like, what does that mean? You know, I believe that there is a whole world of dreams that we still don't even exactly know. I mean, people don't actually know what it is, you know. People don't, there's some neuroscientists that can talk about it, but people still don't really exactly know what they're made of or what they, you know, where they come from. And, you know, so as far as dreams representing a premonition or a foretelling of what's to come, I think that dreams do warn us sometimes. And I wouldn't say necessarily warn us of like that something bad's going to happen. But I do know that there is a sense like right before my abuelita passed away last year. I mean, she'd been sick for a while, right? So it makes sense that you're already in that state of like grieving or in that state of like, you don't know what's going to happen. But the day before, the night before, or 2 nights before it happened, I'd been up north because I was, you know, I volunteer at a prison. I, you know, work on this prison project. And I was up north and I had this dream that I left and I didn't get to see her. And I was like, oh, I need to make sure that like next time I'm up here, I get to see her. And in the dream, somebody, it was like a relative of some sort, was like, oh, you're not going to get the chance. Like, you're not going to get the chance to see her. And I just remember feeling like, oh my God, that was a really ugly feeling. And then the next day, when it was time for me to come back home, I was going to go up there. And my dad's like, no, it's fine. Like, she's not really doing well. Like, just come see her next time, right? So I didn't get to see her, you know, before she passed. And all I kept thinking was, wow, that dream had told me that I wasn't going to get to see her before. And
I wonder with dreams, how much of it is like true reality or like you just felt that.
Yeah.
Like you had a feeling you weren't going to see her. So you dreamed it and real lifed it, you know,
right,
they say dreamed
exactly.
and real lifed it, you know? And I remember reading once that like dreams are often like a garbage disposal for like all of our like unprocessed thoughts and emotions. And I definitely have a lot of the dreams like that are like the fears that are like, that I never really was honest with myself, but are like in my subconscious.
Yeah.
Like that was like last night's, just like all these like fears that I had. And, but there's different vibrations of dreams, just like there's different vibrations of conversations, like there's some low vibe dreams, there's some really high vibe dreams. I often have dreams that I'm like in Lemuria and like how it sank. And then I teleported to Atlantis and I'm like, doing all this like past life, like travel. And then I have dreams that are just like, weird real life things. Like I had this dream of like Cassandra's Instagram post. And then I had to like go on her Instagram. It was like her on a baby moon with her friend who I'm like not even friends with. And I was like, and they were like having a great time in this like forest. And it was like, moms need other moms. Like, why am I dreaming this? Funny. And then I was like, did I look at her Instagram post of her doing this? No. It was just, and then I told her, I was like, I think you need a trip with this friend of yours.
Yeah. Well, but and then you might be compelled to share something like that.
Yeah. So maybe it was a message for her, but I think it was like, I'm kind of in this mom energy with these two dogs right now, that it was like me looking at like, oh, moms understand other moms and like you're preparing for motherhood. And I feel like that's probably why I dreamed it, So yeah, I do feel it's ultimately us and different archetypes of us, but on a deeper level, that's what even real life is. Yeah. Every person is us.
Yeah.
Well,
and in Mexican folklore or Mexican culture, we're sort of like told that, certain things mean certain things. Like, oh, if you dream of, I'm not going to say it, but if you dream of a certain thing, it means death. Or if you dream of, your teeth falling out, that means, money, or like there's certain things that you're sort of taught as a child, and that's what those things mean. But I was also told, my grandma and my aunts, the again Mexican folklore, that when you have these sort of high vibrational dreams, especially if you have them of other people, you're supposed to share them. You're supposed to like say it, because in a way you're speaking into that high frequency, right? So I love writing my dreams down, and I love sharing those dreams whenever it feels like, oh, good, like there's a good energy here. And I was also taught that when you have a low vibrational dream, that you're not supposed to share it, especially if it's about another person. If I'm having a bad dream about myself or something happening to me, or
a bad dream about someone else, yeah, that makes sense, yeah.
So yeah, I think that's those. It's really interesting. I mean, I love it. I love the whole experience.
It's crazy. We all like go into these other states at night, and no one knows where they come from.
Yeah,
it's so nuts.
Yeah, and have a dream sharing buddy.
Yes. Follow your dreams unless they're bad.
Exactly.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Rosie, for being on. Could chat with you for hours. I'll voice note you as soon as we're done with this. And thank you so much. So did you like this episode? I loved answering your guys' questions. So please share with us your questions. Leave a review for this podcast. That really helps the podcast reach more people. But also share your questions that you have in the review. And before you hit submit, I want to send you a gift for leaving a review. So take a screenshot of that review and email it over to me at sahara@iamsahararose.com. You can find that email and all of the links I've mentioned today in the show notes. So I will send you back my free womb meditation. And this is an 8-minute meditation you can do to talk to your womb space, which is the house of our divine feminine knowledge. So you can ask your womb questions. Oftentimes when Rosie's not answering, I'll ask my womb now. And, and in my meditation practice, I've been doing a lot of Kundalini yoga recently. And I'm like, I personally bring all my energy into my womb and I ask it questions, because it's like the holy grail. It knows everything. It's the hologram of the reality. It's the 3D printer that made all of us, or our womb really knows the way. So I will send you a meditation that I've created to connect to your womb space as a free gift for leaving a review and submitting your question. So again, you can find that email in the show notes. Thank you so much. Be sure to subscribe wherever you're listening to this. It's on YouTube, so you can watch us on video, as well as Spotify, iTunes, wherever you listen to podcasts, you can subscribe. That allows you to stay in the frequency. And I'm so excited to be vibing with you on this journey. All right, have a good one.
Trust your intuition, trust your inner wisdom, trust your inner guidance. Close your eyes and listen. Surrender, let go. So trust your intuition, trust your inner wisdom, trust your inner guidance. Close your